News Radio 700 WLW.
COVID changed the workplace, Rock. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, how about that?
And I don't think many bosses are too liking that trend. I saw a study, 74% of bosses are weary of this telecommunication, off-site, Zoom sort of workforce. And
50, the figures I've got, 57% said they don't trust their employees to work without in-person supervision. And almost 60% reported the same sentiment about employees working without digital supervision. Now, so in other words, your boss thinks he needs, or she needs to spy on you.
Which is probably the case.
Vast majority of bosses, 78%, said they use software to track employee performance and or online activity.
Now, if this place is tracking your computer strokes at home, God help them. But
well, as long as it's not at home. Here, I mind my P's and Q's. You can't be a fool. Let's go and talk to a workplace expert about it. We've had Joel on many times. Joel Patterson, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So, Joel, what do you make of this? It's going to get worse before it gets better as far as, I hesitate to say surveillance of employees go, but, call it what you will.
Well, I think it might surprise some people, but we're already there. A lot of the things that we're predicting are already taking place, maybe in a calmer fashion. But as far as the technology is concerned, as far as companies' willingness to use that technology, I mean, we're already there. There's a lot of tools out there. I'll give you one really quick example that we use as an organization called Gong, and it records video calls. It gives you a transcript of everything. It looks for keywords. It can run an AI against the call and determine some next steps and things that you might need to do. So when you're using them to better your business, it's one thing. Where this survey is getting to is, are you using those exact same tools to really, for all intents and purposes, micromanage people and get into their business for absolutely everything that they're doing, and that's where you got to really make a decision as a business and a leader whether it makes sense for you.
But of course, the bosses are making the case for saying, look, I mean, we're letting you work from home. You don't even have to come into the office. That's going to save you a lot of time, gas, the whole deal. But you got to at least give us this. We can't just throw this out to you and just cross our fingers that you're going to get your work done. Because most people need that constant push or that constant threat of the bosses over their shoulder, hey, I better get down to business, no?
Well, I think it depends on the type of business that you're in. If you're a high turnover call center, by all means, these are the type of tools that are going to make your life so much easier. And you need that because you want them to learn, you want to provide training and everything else. But if you're at an organization that is a little bit more professional and you've got different metrics in place, which is obviously a key component of this, people have to know what they have to do in order to be successful. If you have those measures in place, then do you really need to monitor every single call that they have? Is there other ways, or are there other ways to monitor what your productivity is? And from everything that I've seen and the surveys that I've dug into, productivity remains high. I think this is more ethical concerns around what people are talking about and whether or not they're actually doing the job that they were hired to do.
Joel Patterson is our guest. And Joel, one of the questions that's presented in this article I was reading is, just because your employer can spy on you, should they necessarily do that?
Yeah, that's a very dicey question, and I think most organizations will feel a little strange about employing those kind of tactics unless that's just the type of company that they are. I know I wouldn't want to do that without letting everybody know, but I think part of, if you're going to roll one of these tools out, one of the things that you have to do to be successful with it is kind of be nonchalant about it. I mean, you can let them know, but you don't want to necessarily completely change how they interact. You want to get honest feedback, and so how you roll these things out, how they're received, has a lot to do with the data that is ultimately produced as well. Because if the implementation of the tool is botched, you're going to get bad results. And so the deployment of how you do this is just as important as whether you decide to use it at all.
Do you see more bosses going to because I've long been an advocate of, look, just the results, right? Results-driven business. If you make your quota, you can work for a half hour a day, right? I mean, are more and more bosses looking at it that way, or are they still weary?
Yeah, COVID changed all that. I mean, a year and a half ago, if somebody told me they were taking a call by the pool, there's no way. I don't think many bosses would be okay with that. But these days, if you're getting your work done and your prospect or client doesn't know you're sitting by the pool, you're probably going to be okay with it. It really has changed how you lead, how you are an employee. All of that stuff is out the window, clearly, based on what's happened in the last year. And you think about when you go back to a year ago and how hard it was for everybody to move into this new normal. Well, I think we're finding that to move back to the old normal is every bit as difficult and sometimes even harder for people that really want to stay home. And so using tools like this can help companies get a little bit more comfortable with what their employees have going on. Whether you agree with them or not, they're out there and they're probably going to stay for the long haul.
Now what are happening, Joe, to these businesses, these bosses that are super resistant to this new way of doing business? Are workers saying, look, are they quitting? They going other places? Because I can see a lot of old school bosses saying, look, I've done it this way for 40 years. Okay, yeah, last year was last year, but let's get back to normal. Let's get back down to business. Are they finding themselves that they're losing people that way?
100%. There's a lot more volatility in the employee market these days than a lot of people realize. Again, it goes back to the type of business that you're in, but there are plenty of companies out there who are offering 100% remote work, and they're offering pretty competitive salaries. Now, whether or not that's a long-term approach to these businesses and these solutions, I don't think it's going to be a completely 100% remote situation. I think the companies that can find a way to employ a hybrid solution, give people some flexibility, but also keep them in the office for collaboration and relationships, those are the companies that are going to be the most successful. But everybody's got to decide what their plan is, and I think some of those older school type of leaders are going to find that they're going to run across some people that are just going to say no, and they got to be okay with that.
Joel Patterson is our guest, and Joel, let's talk about legality here for a minute. When does it cross the line? You, as your employer is whatever, call it
Tracking
what you will,
you, spying.
tracking, ergo spying on you. When does that line cross? I don't know what your protection is. Honestly, I don't know where that is.
Well, legally, if they are on company time and company property, it is within the employer's rights to take that data, to get whatever work product they are working on, to see what they have going on. Okay. Now, I think most people these days recognize that if you write something in an email or if you use Slack or Microsoft Teams, I mean, all those things are stored somewhere. I mean, there's been plenty of cases of a Slack channel getting out of hand and a lot of people getting let go. But people need to recognize that is the case. So don't even think twice about that. So the smartest approach is to make sure that however you communicate, just recognize that it's probably being monitored or could be. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that just choose not to. And then don't use any of your stuff for personal, like you were talking about when I came on. Your home computer is protected. You do whatever you want there. But as far as your work computer, I would keep it plenty clean.
Thank God. Joel Patterson, heading up the Vested Group, a workplace expert. Joel, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Y'all take care.